Hey, this is Tyler. Welcome back. I'm glad you're here. Thanks for joining me on this journey. In our last episode, we explored the foundational emotional drives seeking care, rage, fear, lust, panic and grief, and play. And that underpinned human motivation. And from that, we discovered that these drives are evolutionary mechanisms designed to ensure survival, foster relationships, and inspire exploration. By understanding these emotional systems, we saw how they serve as the groundwork for personal meaning and collective human flourishing. And in this episode, for episode 6, we'll explore while emotional drives provide the foundation, they interact uniquely with each person's personality and cognitive capacities. So we have a central question. How do individual differences in personality traits and intelligence shape the paths we take in the search for meaning? Our goal here is to explore how these personal truths and attributes act as a lens through which we interpret and navigate the existential landscape, providing tools for self awareness, resilience, and growth. So, why does it matter? Understanding oneself is a key aspect of being able to discover your own personal meaning. And have personal reflection, you recognize your unique strengths and tendencies. And that's crucial for aligning your actions and long term goals with a life of purpose. It also gives you agency. Without self awareness, we risk becoming passive participants in our own lives, shaped by external forces rather than crafting our own narrative. We end up as victims to our own lives rather than champions of our own lives. Now, the personality offers us the ability to discover traits and cognitive emotional strengths, which function as a life map that help us identify our natural inclinations, potential blind spots, and areas for growth. It's not like a normal map, but it is a map. It helps us navigate the world, but it's in a way that, in understanding who we are, it gives us the ability to navigate the challenges that are set before us. And it's crucial because this map not only clarifies our tendencies, but also provides a pathway to harmonize our inner drives with our external aspirations. The complexity of meaning is intense, as we've discovered in previous episodes. And life's search for meaning isn't linear, as we've shown before. It's shaped by emotions, relationships, challenges, and opportunities. And it's shaped by ups and downs and lefts and rights. It doesn't move the way that we expect it to, but it does, over the long haul, incrementally improve or incrementally walk you towards hell. And that incremental adjustment is something that's critical. And the way that we need to focus on that is by understanding how our personalities, skills, and intelligence influence our perceptions and decisions. We gain tools to navigate uncertainty and craft a meaningful existence by understanding who we are. So let's start at the beginning and let's talk about the big 5 personality traits and how that relates to meaning. So, where does the big 5 come from? Let's start with the origins. The big 5 isn't some random set of characteristics pulled out of thin air. It's rooted in decades of research in psychology, starting with the idea that personality could be measured and categorized in a systematic way. Early researchers began exploring traits in the mid 20th century, but it wasn't until the 1980s and 90s that the Big 5 emerged as a dominant framework. Why? Because across studies and cultures, these 5 traits consistently showed up as the most reliable and universal dimensions of human personality. You can include a 6th dimension as honesty, humility, as in Hexaco, but I'm not going to cover that today as it's less common. There are some really interesting aspects of it, but for now, I'm going to focus on just the Big 5. The Big 5 framework has stood the test of time because it's grounded in data, not dogma. Thousands of studies have validated it, showing that these 5 traits, openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism, capture the core of what makes us, well, us. These traits describe how we interact with the world, process emotions, and navigate relationships. And many of these areas have been expanded further. And there's a lot to say about further adaptation of that. And hopefully we get to that in a later episode. But for now, we're just going to address the fundamentals. So let's dive into what these traits actually are. The Big Five is often remembered with the acronym OCEAN. Let's start with openness to experience. This trait is all about curiosity, imagination, and a willingness to explore new ideas. People high in openness are drawn to novelty and creativity. They're the ones who love pondering big existential questions or driving into a new hobby just for the thrill of it. Hmm, might be high in openness. We'll see. Those low in openness, they prefer structure and tradition, finding comfort in the familiar. Next, we have conscientiousness. Think of this as the get it done trait. It's about discipline, organization, and responsibility. High conscientiousness drives people to set long term goals and stick with them. These are your planners, your detail oriented achievers. On the other end, low conscientiousness can mean spontaneity or sometimes chaos. Next, we have extroversion. This one's pretty straightforward. It's about energy, sociability, and a tendency to seek out reward driven interactions. Extroverts are energized by social settings and thrive in environments where they can connect with others. Introverts, on the other hand, may still enjoy socializing, but recharge through solitude rather than being in a large group. Next, we have agreeableness. Here we're talking about empathy, kindness, and cooperative spirit. High agreeableness is about getting along with others and fostering harmony or peace. Lower agreeableness, however, doesn't necessarily mean someone is mean. It often reflects a more competitive or skeptical outlook. And finally, we have neuroticism. This trait measures emotional stability or instability. People high in neuroticism are more prone to experiencing anxiety, sadness, or stress. Low neuroticism, on the other hand, equates to being more even keeled and less easily rattled by life's ups and downs. So, why do these traits exist? Evolution provides the answer. Each trait represents an adaptive strategy that helped our ancestors survive and thrive and navigate complex social environments. Let's explore how being high or low in each trait can be evolutionary beneficial and why this diversity matters for life as a whole. Let's start with openness to experience. With high openness, you drive curiosity and innovation. These individuals were the pioneers who explored unknown territories, developed tools, and generated creative solutions to problems. They're the visionaries who can think outside the box and imagine possibilities others might miss. An example is an individual who might develop a new way to track migrating herds or invent a better hunting tool, giving the group a competitive edge. Low openness, on the other hand, provides stability and consistency. These individuals preserve traditions, maintaining established practices, and ensure that proven methods are not abandoned in favor of untested ideas. For example, a less open individual might focus on perfecting a reliable farming technique rather than risking resources on experimental crops. So it matters because the spectrum of openness balances innovation and preservation. Societies thrive when some push boundaries while others ensure continuity. Next, we have conscientiousness. With high conscientiousness, that enables discipline, organization, and long term planning. These individuals are planners and task makers who ensure resources are stored in the winter, alliances are maintained, and goals are met. High conscientious individual might be one to carefully track food supplies, ensuring the group's survival during lean times. Low conscientiousness, on the other hand, brings flexibility and adaptability. These individuals are more spontaneous, able to pivot quickly when circumstances change or when a structured plan no longer works. A less conscientious person might creatively adapt during a crisis, devising a solution on the fly when the stored food runs out. This trait balance structure and spontaneity, ensuring survival in both predictable and unpredictable environments. Extroversion and the high extroversion case fosters social bonding, cooperation, and reward seeking. These individuals are natural connectors, building networks, sharing resources, and leading group initiatives. A extroverted individual might organize group hunts or foster alliances with neighboring tribes. Low extroversion, on the other hand, or introversion, allows for deep thinking, focus, and independence. These individuals are often more reflective and better at solitary tasks like crafting tools, observing prey, or strategizing. An introverted individual might spend hours perfecting a weapon or mapping migration patterns in their mind. And while extroversion brings energy and connection, introversion provides depth and focus. Together they ensure the groups Together they ensure that groups can thrive both socially and intellectually. Next we have agreeableness, where high agreeableness promotes empathy, cooperation, and conflict resolution. These individuals ensure harmony within the group, making decisions that prioritize collective well-being. An agreeable person might mediate disputes or help care for group members who are ill or injured, whereas low agreeableness can foster independence, assertiveness, and healthy skepticism. These individuals challenge groupthink, bring diverse perspectives, and push for innovation. A less agreeable person might question ineffective traditions, suggesting a bold new hunting strategy or settlement relocation. And while agreeable individuals build community and cohesion, and less agreeable ones challenge the status quo, both work towards driving progress. Finally, we have neuroticism. High neuroticism brings vigilance and caution. These individuals are hyper aware of the potential threats and are more likely to prepare for the worst case scenarios, protecting the group from danger. A neurotic individual might insist on storing extra food or avoiding a risky migration route that expose the group to predators. Low neuroticism, on the other hand, fosters calmness and emotional stability. These individuals keep the group grounded during stressful times, providing reassurance and maintaining focus in long-term goals. A less neurotic person stays calm during a crisis, helping the group navigate challenges without succumbing to panic. And while high neuroticism ensures caution and preparedness, low neuroticism promotes resilience and composure. So, why is the spectrum of traits good for life and evolution? Why do we see such diversity in personality of traits across humans? Because life itself is unpredictable. Evolution thrives on variability. Each trait, whether high or low, brings a unique strength to the table. Together, these differences create a balanced and adaptive population, capable of responding to a wide range of challenges, especially in tribes and group settings. Now imagine a society where everyone is highly open, innovation might abound, but chaos could follow from a lack of structure. Conversely, a society of low openness individuals might stagnate, clinging to outdated methods. It's the interplay of these traits that ensures not just survival, but thriving. The Big Five traits remind us that there's no one right way to be human. Whether you're cautious or adventurous, outgoing or introspective, you bring something valuable to the collective story of humanity. Embracing this diversity allows us to better understand ourselves, each other, and the unique ways we all contribute to meaning and progress. I'm going to take a step back and talk about myself, my personality, and how it shapes the lens through which I see everything. To give you some context, I took a personality assessment based on the Big Five personality traits, and the results, well, let's just say they confirmed a lot of what I already knew, but also helped me to articulate things in new ways. By understanding who I am, I get a better idea of how I can uniquely bring my traits and talents into the world to make a better place. I recommend you do the same. If you're interested, I've provided a link to where to take the personality test in the comments below. So let's start with agreeableness, where I hit the absolute floor, the 0th percentile. To some, that might sound like a problem, but here's the thing. Being low in agreeableness means I'm direct, competitive, and I'm not afraid of conflict. I'm the kind of person who says what I think, no sugarcoating. I don't mince words, and while that can be jarring to some, it's also incredibly effective for cutting through nonsense and solving problems. It's like if there's an elephant in the room, I'll point it out and maybe wrestle with it while I'm at it. I don't back down easily, and I'm fiercely independent. People might see me as tough or even unyielding, but I see it as a commitment to honesty and progress. If I disagree with you, you'll know. And while it can create friction, it also means I'm rarely weighted down by resentment or hidden anger. Now, this is just me in this area. And as we talked about before, the spectrum of personality traits is good for human flourishing. And while I'm highlighting my own areas, it's not to say that it's good or bad. It's just to say that it is. And by understanding myself and what personality traits I have, it helps me understand how I can apply those to better human flourishing. Next, there's conscientiousness. I'm in the 80th percentile here, which means I'm organized, driven, and I'm relentlessly focused on getting things done. If I set a goal, I'll follow through, no excuses. I'm also incredibly industrious in the 93rd percentile. And that's the engine behind my productivity. I thrive on structure and discipline. I don't tolerate laziness, whether in myself or in others. For me, every day is the opportunity to make progress, to move the needle towards something meaningful. I'm someone who believes that hard work pays off, and I approach life with a sense of duty. If something's worth doing, it's worth doing well. Now, that said, my average score in orderliness is right around 50%, which keeps me from getting bogged down in perfectionism. I like systems and efficiency, but I can roll with a bit of chaos when needed. Then let's get to extroversion. This is where things get fun. My extroversion is in the 91st percentile, which means I'm energized by people, ideas, and possibilities. Social situations, kind of. I'm assertive to the point of being in the 96th percentile, but if you take me out of that and put me into just an arbitrary group of people, I'm actually not all that interested. But I'm really enthusiastic in the 64th percentile, which means I bring energy and optimism to the table. For me, extroversion isn't about just enjoying social interactions. It's about using them as a platform for action. I see conversations and opportunities to connect, persuade, and build something bigger than myself. I thrive in dynamic environments where ideas are flying and decisions are being made. Next, we have neuroticism. When it comes to neuroticism, I'm in the 9th percentile, which means it's very low. So, what does that mean? I'm really unshakable. I rarely worry, I don't dwell on the negative, and I recover quickly from setbacks. Life throws challenges at everyone, but I've got a knack for keeping my head in the storm. This trait has been a superpower in handling stress and uncertainty. And I don't get stuck in what ifs. I focus on what's next, and I really use it in order to focus on loss, in that any amount of loss that I have is just an opportunity to learn in order to become better for the next time. Finally, there's openness, where I'm in the 83rd percentile. This is the trait which fuels my curiosity, creativity, and my love for big ideas. I'm constantly exploring, whether it's philosophy, history, science, spirituality, consciousness. I find meaning in abstract concepts and complex problems, and I'm not afraid to challenge traditional ways of thinking. Openness also makes me a systems thinker. I don't just look at the pieces, I see how they fit into the bigger picture. Whether it's discussing the evolution of ideas, exploring the intersection of technology and humanity, or crafting narratives for this podcast, I'm always chasing the next layer of understanding, and it's one of the things that drives me to seek further. Well, how does this all come together for me? At my core, I'm a relentless seeker of truth and meaning. I'm driven by a desire to understand the systems that govern our lives, and whether those systems are biological, cultural, or philosophical. I value clarity, action, and growth. I believe in pushing through discomfort to get to the heart of what matters. I'm not going to make everyone feel comfortable, but I am here to try and make things better. My low agreeableness might blunt me, but my high conscientiousness ensures I'm focused on outcomes that matter. My extroversion gets me the energy to lead, connect, and inspire, while my openness ensures I'm always learning and evolving. And by low neuroticism, I can handle the weight of big questions without losing my footing. Life to me is a puzzle, one where every piece matters. Every step forward counts. That's the lens which I see the world, and it's the driving force behind what I do, including this podcast. And thank you for joining me on this journey. I feel a little sheepish talking about it, but Hopefully, in you understanding an aspect of who I am, it will help you discover an aspect of who you are as well. And to me, that's the most important part because by breaking down these traits and linking them to evolution and meaning, this section hopefully helps you see personality not just as a set of characteristics, but as a dynamic lens through which we navigate our lives. It ties personal growth and self awareness directly to the broader theme of finding purpose and meaning. Personality traits began to emerge early in life, with measurable differences observable even in infancy. Temperament, which refers to innate tendencies in emotional reactivity and self regulation, is often seen as a precursor to personality. For example, some infants are more sociable, while others are more cautious or irritable. Those early traits provide foundation for later personality development, and I think they're driven by aspects of who we are fundamentally within our neural wiring. By childhood and adolescence, Big Five personality traits of openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism start to become recognizable. During these stages, personality is still malleable and strongly influenced by genetic predispositions, parenting styles, social interactions, and environmental factors such as culture and schooling. But they typically solidify in early childhood around the ages of 20. This period marks the culmination of significant neurological and psychological development, including the maturation of the prefrontal cortex, which governs executive functions like decision making and emotional regulation. By this point, people have often established stable routines, goal paths, and social roles, further reinforcing consistent patterns of behavior. Which leads me to one of my more controversial statements: people don't change. Now, I know that's a provocative claim, but let me clarify what I mean. At our core, we're shaped by biology, temperament, and early life experiences in ways that are deeply ingrained with us. Neuroplasticity, our brain's ability to reorganize itself by forming new neural connections, has given many people the impression that we can entirely reinvent ourselves. And while it's true that we can learn, adapt, and grow, the reality is that those changes often happen within the framework of who we already are. Consider this: our personality traits, like whether we're introverted or extroverted, are remarkably stable over time. Studies show that while we might adjust slightly as we age, like becoming more conscientious or less neurotic, the foundational structure of our personality doesn't fundamentally shift. If you're naturally an introvert, you may learn to navigate social situations or even thrive in them, but you'll still recharge by seeking solitude because that's how your nervous system is wired. Research shows that introverts, for instance, are often more sensory perceptive. They process stimuli more intensely, whether that's a loud environment or subtle emotional cues. It's not something that you can simply train away, it's part of your biological makeup. And this ties into another point: what we think we want versus what we actually want. Society, trends, or even influencers might tell you to aim for something flashy or extroverted, like being the life of the party or a high powered CEO. But those external desires often clash with the internal blueprint of who you actually are. If you're wired to seek depth over breadth, chasing surface level ambitions won't fulfill you. You might spend years climbing a corporate ladder, only to realize that your passion was something quieter, like writing or creating. And here's the kicker: true happiness and fulfillment doesn't come from trying to overhaul your fundamental nature. It comes from aligning your actions and goals with who you already are. That's not to say that you shouldn't challenge yourself or grow. You absolutely should. But the growth that sticks is the kind that works in harmony with your core personality, not against it. So when I say people don't change, it's not meant to sound pessimistic. It's a call to embrace your authentic self and to stop trying to mold yourself into someone else's idea of success. However, research in psychology does show that while core personality traits remain relatively stable over a person's lifetime, There are predictable trends in how these traits shift as people age. These traits are not about fundamental transformation, but rather gradual, consistent adjustments, referred to as maturation effects. On average, people tend to become more conscientious as they grow older. This means they become better at self discipline, organization, and goal setting, likely reflecting life experiences that demand greater responsibility, such as careers, parenting, or long term commitments. Similarly, individuals exhibit lower levels of neuroticism with age, becoming less prone to stress, anxiety, and emotional volatility. This shift is often attributed to improved emotional regulation, greater life experience, and an enhanced ability to cope with challenges over time. Other traits like agreeableness also tend to increase later in life, especially during middle age and beyond, as people prioritize maintaining relationships and fostering harmony in their social circles. Meanwhile, openness to experience may actually decline with older adults, often focusing on stability and tradition rather than novelty and exploration. However, and again, we've said however like several times here, significant personality changes that would alter one's core tendencies are relatively rare. When such changes do occur, they are often tied to major life events, trauma, or intentional efforts over a long period of time, such as through therapy or personal development initiatives. Even then, those shifts are typically incremental rather than transformative. These findings highlight that while personality traits are largely stable, the natural evolution of certain traits over time reflects the interplay between our biology and the demands of our environment, guiding us towards greater maturity and resilience as we navigate life. You are who you are, and that's a good thing. You shouldn't try and be someone else because someone else wants you to be that. You should be you, and you should understand who you are. And you should look at that and say, is this where I want to be, and where do I want to go from here? But to fundamentally change who you are, I think is impossible. And so it's better to embrace the aspects of who you are and mold those aspects that you can mold, such as higher conscientiousness, lower neuroticism, and greater openness. And we'll see where you go. Next, I want to shift gears and talk about something that's probably even more controversial, and that's intelligence. So, intelligence is the ability to learn, adapt, reason, and solve problems effectively across diverse ranges of contexts. Intelligence is typically measured using standardized tests and designed to assess a range of cognitive abilities. These tests aim to provide a quantifiable score, commonly referred to as IQ or G for general intelligence. Here's how the components of the test are assessed. Modern intelligence tests aims to assess both fluid and crystallized intelligence, along with other cognitive abilities. Some of the most widely used IQ tests are the Wechsler Adult Intelligence Scale and the Stanford Binet Intelligence Scales. Now, these tests evaluate multiple cognitive domains, including verbal, comprehension, working memory, and processing speed. There's also a strong correlation between standardized tests like the SAT, ACT, and IQ scores, as both are designed to measure cognitive abilities, and these tests assess skills such as verbal reasoning, mathematical problem solving, pattern recognition, and critical thinking, which are central components of general intelligence or G. Research has consistently shown that performance on these exams closely correlates to traditional IQ tests. And while the SAT and ACT were originally designed for academic placement and college admissions, their focus on reasoning and problem solving mirrors constructs that are evaluated in IQ tests. And this overlap highlights why high scorers on these standardized exams often have similarly high IQ scores, making them useful proxies for gauging intellectual ability, particularly in large populations. Now, the concepts of fluid intelligence and crystallized intelligence were first introduced in the 1940s and further refined in the 60s. Crystallized intelligence fundamentally changed the way that we understand human cognitive abilities, emphasizing that intelligence is not a singular entity, but a dynamic interplay between different types of mental capacities. Before the 60s, intelligence was often viewed as a single general purpose factor referred to as G. And realistically, it still is. But as Charles Spearman in the early 20th century laid the foundation for IQ testing, fluid and crystallized intelligence is more nuanced. This distinction is pivotal because it explains why some cognitive abilities decline with age while others remain stable or even improve. So let's break down each of them. Fluid intelligence refers to our ability to think logically, solve novel problems, and adapt to new situations without relying on pre existing knowledge. This type of intelligence is closely tied to brain function, particularly the speed of neural processing, working memory capacity, and attentive control. Studies show that fluid intelligence peaks in early adulthood, typically around the ages of 20 to 30. This peak is associated with the brain's maximum neuroplasticity and the efficiency of connections between neurons, particularly in regions in the prefrontal cortex. After this peak, fluid intelligence tends to stabilize and then gradually decline as we age. This decline is linked to several biological factors, including the slowing of neural processing speed, reduced working memory capacity, and less efficient communication between different brain areas. However, the decline is not inevitable for everyone, as regular cognitive stimulation, physical activity, and a healthy lifestyle can slow the rate of decline. Then we have crystallized intelligence, which refers to the accumulated knowledge, skills, and expertise gained through life experiences and education. Unlike fluid intelligence, crystallized intelligence often grows steadily through life, even as we age. This is because it depends on the continual integration of new information into existing schemas and the ability to apply learned concepts to new situations. For example, an older adult might use their crystallized intelligence to solve practical problems, making sound judgments or provide mentorship. Crystallized intelligence relies heavily on long term memory, which remains relatively stable well later into life. This type of intelligence often peaks in middle adulthood, somewhere between ages 40 and 60, and can remain robust into early senior years, depending upon factors like continued learning and active engagement in intellectual or social activities. Now, what are the things that influences IQ and intelligence over time? So first, we have to address the fundamental layer that different people have different intelligences and that it is not distributed equally. Not only that, but it's unfair. And it's one of the most uniquely unfair aspects of society that some people are more intelligent than other people. Let's see where that comes from. So, studies estimate that genetic factors account for 50 to 80% of individuals' IQ. That means that genes influence our brain structure, processing speed, and overall cognitive capacity more than anything else. The expression of genetic potential is then shaped by our environmental factors. So we start with genetics first. So if your parents are smart, the likelihood that you're smart is going to be higher. Next, we have the environmental aspects. These are things like during your childhood that played in the role of shaping your IQ, whether that's access to quality education, nutrition, exposure to intellectual stimulating activities, or a stable home environment. Then we have lifestyle and health, where cognitive decline is not inevitable, but lifestyle choices can significantly influence the trajectory of both fluid and crystallized intelligence. Regular physical activity, a balanced diet, good sleep, and mentally stimulating activities really can help reserve and delay decline, especially in your latter years. Next, we have socioeconomic factors. That means that access to education, healthcare, and resources impacts the ability of both fluid and crystallized intelligence. Early interventions in underserved populations can significantly enhance cognitive outcomes. One of the things that I'd like to segue on here is that I haven't seen the evidence on this, but I think it might be possible that in early childhood development, if you grow up in a low socioeconomic environment, you end up with a high amount of anxiety. And when you have a high amount of anxiety early in your life, your brain is only focused on the now. And it's not focused on planning for the future, which means that for kids who are growing up in environments that are hard for them to survive in, we're putting them at a disadvantage early in life in their intelligence development. And that's harmful to our societies. What we should look to do is we should look to try and make it so that everyone has the same opportunity. We should make certain that we invest in lower income neighborhoods. We should invest in families such that families that have access to resources don't necessarily just give their kids extra advantages. And we as a society should do that because it's better for all of us the greater the intelligence is of everyone in society. Slight rant over. Coming back to neuroplasticity. While fluid intelligence is more sensitive to aging, engaging in cognitively challenging tasks can promote neuroplasticity, helping to mitigate declines. But you'll never increase your IQ. It's just not going to happen. By the time that you've reached 25, you're essentially done. You're no longer going to get smarter. And the best that can happen is that you're going to decline your intelligence with age. Now, I say that not to be negative, but just to accept the realities of situation from the life that you come from. And I want to highlight the role of IQ and personality traits. When it comes to predicting future income, IQ stands as the single most significant factor. Intelligence measured through IQ tests reflects cognitive abilities such as problem solving, learning capacity, and adaptability, skills that are directly transferable to job performance, education attainment, and the ability to navigate complex environments. Numerous studies have shown that individuals with higher IQ scores tend to achieve higher levels of education, securing more cognitively demanding roles, and earning greater incomes across their lifetimes. This isn't fair, but life's not fair. And it's more helpful for you to know where you are on that spectrum in order to understand how you can contribute into the world. I'm not saying that's great. I'm just saying that's the way that the world works. When we originally discovered that IQ was distributed across a bell curve and that there were differences in people with low IQ and high IQ, it really shook the foundations of who we are because we wanted everyone to have the same opportunities. But as we've shown above, there are certain areas in life where you don't have control over what you've been given, but you do have to deal with the cards that you've been played. And playing them well still leads to a life well lived. And so playing your cards, regardless of what they've been given to you on your personality or your IQ, is the challenge that everyone faces. And everyone is called to play their cards in the best way that they possibly can. Because by doing so, and by making incremental steps, we further refine who we are and we further step towards making a better place for us and for the world. And while that's unfair, there are things that we can still do with our other personality traits. The second most influential predictor of income is conscientiousness. As we talked about before, conscientiousness is something that can grow over your life, which means you have control over it. Conscientious individuals excel in areas like organization, discipline, persistence, and goal setting, which are essential for sustained career activities. Unlike IQ, which is essentially fixed after you're 25, conscientiousness can grow. That means it makes it a critical trait for achieving professional development. It means that it's something that you can take ownership over. And other personality traits, while influential to a lesser degree, also play a role in determining income. For instance, Individuals with lower neuroticism tend to handle stress better. Similarly, extroversion enables people driven by sociability to gain opportunities in roles that require networking, leadership, and public engagement. Agreeableness is advantageous for building strong relationships and working in teams. And it tends to have a more nuanced impact, but it still affects income. In fact, I've seen studies that even say that once you have a set baseline for IQ and conscientiousness, agreeableness is the next thing that makes it possible for you to be successful in the world. And I think that's because in order to deal well with others, you need to love others well. And being agreeable helps you to love others better. It helps you to work in groups better. And that's a great thing. And even though IQ is unfair, and even though the world is distributed across IQ, there are still ways that we can understand that within who we are in order to understand how we can take the unique aspects of who we are and apply them into the world in order to make the world a better place. To successfully navigate your unique life map and to find your place in the world, it's essential to understand the two foundational aspects of yourself: how smart you are and the core traits of your personality. Intelligence shapes the range of opportunities you can realistically pursue, while your personality determines how you approach those opportunities and interact with others. Without a deep understanding and acceptance of these dimensions, you'll risk being blindsided by the four horsemen of nihilism. That's bitterness, resentment, hatred, and blame. And these destructive emotions may initially provide a sense of fuel, particularly when life feels unjust or stagnant. And they can even push you to escape the lower rungs of Maslow's hierarchy, motivating you to meet basic needs or demand respect. But they are ultimately unsustainable. These emotions sap your energy and clarity, creating a self defeating cycle that stunts long term growth and wisdom. True wisdom, which requires self acceptance, perspective, and the ability to align your actions with your abilities, values, and goals. When you take time to understand your intelligence and personality, you gain two critical advantages. First, you can identify paths that play to your strengths rather than chasing ill fitting dreams that lead to frustration. And second, you can develop a sense of peace with who you are, sidestepping the trap of blaming others or the world for your circumstances. This alignment frees you to channel your energy into productive, meaningful pursuits rather than being consumed by destructive emotions. In the end, understanding yourself is the key to rising beyond mere survival and finding fulfillment. It's a foundation for building life, not ruled by external comparison or internal turmoil, but guided by clarity, self awareness, and a meaningful pursuit of your purpose. Life's not fair, but you do have a choice. It never was, and it never will be. You didn't get to choose your parents, the circumstances of your birth, or the environment in which you were raised. You didn't get to decide your genetic makeup, your natural abilities, or even many of the early opportunities or lack thereof that shaped your life. These factors are simply handed to you, the starting conditions of your existence. But while you may not have chosen these initial conditions, you do have the power to choose what you'll do with the time and the opportunities that are given to you. And that's where understanding yourself, your unique skills, abilities, and personality becomes critical. When you truly know who you are, you can see the potential you hold. No matter how unfair or challenging your circumstances may seem, instead of lamenting that you didn't receive, you can focus on what you have to offer and how you can contribute to the world. Life may have dealt you life may have dealt you a set of cards, but it's how you play them that defines your journey. Recognizing your individuality also highlights the responsibility you bear. Each person has a role to play in building a better world. And understanding your strengths and limitations allows you to find where you can make the greatest impact. This isn't about comparing yourself to others or chasing someone else's definition of success. It's about using what's uniquely yours to leave the world better than you found it. The unfairness of life doesn't diminish your purpose, it magnifies it. Your circumstances don't dictate your value, but how you respond to them does. Accepting the truth of who you are, both the gifts and the challenges, frees you to focus on what truly matters, what you will do with the time that's been given to you. And this is your call to responsibility by choosing your cross. Life's filled with burdens, and none of us can escape carrying our own. This is the universal truth behind the call to responsibility and to bear your cross. But here's the crucial distinction. If you don't consciously choose your cross, life will assign one to you anyway. Responsibility is unavoidable, but intentionality is where meaning and purpose are born. This concept echoes the myth of Sisyphus, as we talked about before. Condemned to roll a boulder up a hill for eternity, only to watch it roll back down. At first glance, it's a tale of despair. But as we talked about before, true power lies in how we perceive. If Sisyphus chooses to embrace his burden, he decides to see his struggle as his own creation. The punishment transforms into a challenge, a heroic act of defiance and meaning. In the same way, the crosses we bear are opportunities for growth, transformation, and purpose if we consciously choose to carry them. Life's unfairness, its pain, and even its tragedies are not meant to defeat us, but serve as calls to adventure. When we reframe struggles we face, whether they're hardships, failures, or the circumstances we didn't choose, we unlock their potential to shape us into stronger, wiser, and better individuals. These challenges become weightlifting of the soul, the resistance needed to grow into who we are meant to be. This isn't to say the path is easy. Choosing your cross means embracing responsibility, not out of obligation, but with a conscious awareness of the growth that it offers. It requires looking at the unfairness of life not as a curse, but as the arena in which you rise to the occasion. You were not given this life to coast or lament the hand you were dealt. You were given this life to meet its challenges head on and to leave the world better for having carried your burden well. Responsibility is the antidote to nihilism, bitterness, and despair. It gives shape to your journey and it aligns your actions with a greater purpose. By consciously choosing your cross, you affirm that you are not a passive observer of life, but an active participant in its unfolding. Everything, your joys, your struggles, your failures, and your successes, it's the call to adventure, to grow and to get better. The question is not whether you will carry a burden, but whether you will carry it with purpose, dignity, and meaning. To begin the journey of taking on responsibility, we must first humble ourselves. This humility requires us to confront a painful truth. We are not entitled to an easy life, nor are we owed success, recognition, or comfort. The four horsemen of nihilism, bitterness, resentment, hatred, and blame, often cloud our vision, convincing us that the world is unjust and that responsibility is someone else's burden. These destructive forces thrive on entitlement and the refusal to face reality. Overcoming them is not only challenging, but profoundly uncomfortable. Taking responsibility is an act of courage, but it often looks like defeat at first. It demands that we relinquish the comforting illusion that we are victims of our circumstances and instead accept that we have a role to play in shaping our lives and the world around us. This shift from entitlement to humility can feel like losing ground, especially when we've clung to narratives that absolve us of accountability. Yet, this very act of surrender is what opens the door to growth and transformation. The process doesn't happen overnight, though. Taking on responsibility begins with incremental steps. It's very small, but meaningful actions that slowly chip away at the despair and apathy that entitlement fosters. It could mean showing up consistently for a job. It could mean taking care of a loved one, or simply being honest about our shortcomings. Each step strengthens our resolve. and builds the foundations for a better life, both for ourselves and for those around us. As we continue on this path, the pain of humility gives way to a deeper sense of purpose. We see how our efforts, however small, contribute to something greater when we take a step back. Responsibility transforms from a burden to a source of pride. It's a testament to our willingness to face life head on. It forges a sense of meaning that entitlement can never provide, a meaning rooted not in what we expect to receive, but in what we willingly give and sacrifice. The truth is that life's challenges will not disappear. Pain, unfairness, and difficulty are constants. But when we humble ourselves and take responsibility for what we can control, namely ourselves and our perspectives, we gain the strength to endure and even thrive. We become examples for others, lighting a path through the darkness of nihilism towards a life of meaning and fulfillment. Responsibility isn't just a weight to carry, it's the bridge to a better life for ourselves and those we influence. To bring this episode to a close, let's weave together the essential threads we've discussed today. First, the Big Five personality traits provide a powerful framework for understanding individual differences. These traits shape how we perceive the world, make decisions, and create meaning in our lives. Recognizing where we fall on the spectrum of these traits allows us to better understand our strengths, tendencies, and challenges. Next, IQ serves as another foundational pillar. While it's not the only measure of our potential, it's undeniably a significant predictor of outcomes like career success and problem solving ability. But intelligence alone isn't enough. Pairing it with conscientiousness and an understanding of your own personality creates a roadmap for navigating life's complexities. We also explored a hard truth that life's not fair. None of us chose the circumstances of our birth, our parents, or the foundational elements of who we are. Yet within this reality lies an incredible opportunity: the ability to choose what we do with the time and talents given to us. Embracing this perspective shifts the focus from blame to action, empowering us to build a life of purpose and impact. Responsibility is the anchor that ties these insights together. By consciously choosing to bear our cross, we face our challenges head on. We find meaning even in struggle. The myth of Sisyphus reminds us that life's burdens are inevitable, but how we respond to them is within our control. When we view even the most unfair aspects of life as calls to adventure, we transform hardship into growth. To apply these lessons, begin with self reflection. Take time to understand your traits, your abilities, and how they shape your decisions and responsibilities. Tools like journaling, personality assessments, or mindfulness practices can deepen your self awareness and reveal patterns that might otherwise remain hidden. But do it with humility. Be kind to yourself. If you're on the bottom and you've gone through a tremendous amount of hell, taking that first step of moving forward towards something better is many times very, very, very challenging. But it can be done. And the aspect that you have to remember is that you have to do something, however small it is, that gives you some amount of positive movement forward. And that's the critical aspect, is humbling oneself in order to come to the point of doing something that will give your life better meaning, and it will give you something to get a foothold on as you move forward in life. If you recognize that taking small, consistent steps towards responsibility, that'll feel really uncomfortable at first, but they are the keys to building a more meaningful and resilient life, and they compound over time. And so while it feels painful in the moment, the overall aspect of just being a little bit better each day compounds until one day you wake up and you think, holy cow, I'm a totally different person than where I've been. And finally, accept that while life's circumstances may not be entirely within your control, your response to them is. The choices you make define the person you become. And so, as we close, remember that our traits and intelligence provide the foundations for who we are, but they're only the beginning. Next time, we'll dive into the world of values and virtues, the moral compass that directs our personality and drives us towards meaning. These are the principles that guide us through life's complexities, helping us align with who we are, with who we aspire to be. So join me next time as we explore how to build that compass and use it to navigate life's most important decisions. So again, thank you for being here. I'm glad you're here, and thanks for being a part of this journey.